when you are at absolute rock bottom and when you're stripped of everything, either physically or mentally or both, it feels like garbage in the moment. But the truth is, it's one of the best gifts you can ever be given because you get to choose again.
And we're back
with another episode of He Said, She Said.
And we're changing it up a little bit on you guys this week. So our good friends, Brian and Katrina Scott, interviewed us. And we thought this was such a good episode the way that it turned out. It'd be a cool way for you to learn our backstory.
So we sat down at the table, it was both of us couples. We opened up a bottle of wine and she hit record. And you can tell that this is for her podcast on Live Beautifully, but we love the conversation so much that we wanted to share it here as well because we don't always share too much of our backstory and we went pretty deep here.
So after you listen to this episode, number one, I hope that you love it. Number two, be sure to go to her podcast, Live Beautifully. You can find it on Instagram at Live Beautifully, or you can just go to anywhere that you listen to your podcast and check out at Live Beautifully because she has some awesome guests and some awesome episodes.
I'm so happy that we're doing this over rosé.
The only way to do it.
It seems very fitting for all of us.
Chris and Lori Harder, welcome to the podcast.
Thank
so excited to be. Is this live? We're actually here with you. So thank you for having us because we're at your house.
In our makeshift studio.
Yeah. We're at their dining room table. Their home is beautiful. I walked in, I gasped, you guys. And then I walked to the back patio and I looked at the pool and I turned around in the kitchen. I looked at Lori and I said, this is so you.
Mm-hmm. That is awesome.
It's like the ultimate stamp of approval because we watch you guys and think, oh my God, if I could have an ounce of that style.
I did a high kick in your office. I walked in and I tried to get my foot as like up to the ceiling as I could because I was so excited for you. I know that you found your way in Scottsdale. Lori and I did an episode before this and we're like, what brought us here? But there's no coincidences.
No, there's not.
And I know people say it's like things are meant to be, but they totally are. Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand it when you're in the thick of it, you'd understand on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Look at my tattoo, right? My tattoo right here says, live as though the universe conspires in your favor. And it was something that, it's a butchered Rumi quote, completely butchered. And I needed that to keep reframing every single thing that would happen in life, whether it was, having an expectation let down, whether I thought I failed at something. I had to be able to train myself to see the silver lining in it. Mm-hmm. And this is just a small reminder to me to always see the upside of every possible scenario.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that defines you and who you are. And I love that tattoo for you guys. I just took a flat lay of it. His arm is laid out on his table and it's going to be on livebeautifully.com. So if any of you want to show it to your tattoo artist, you may do so. All right. For anyone that hasn't seen anything from you guys, and this could be an hour or it could be a shortened version, whatever you guys want to do. But tell everyone how you guys met, Jim. I mean, what was he doing? What exercise? What's he like?
Legs is, yeah.
Caps. He was doing neck exercises. And then tell me, did you picture yourselves working with each other as soon as you dated? Like,
first of all, we have two sides of the story and it's not a brief story. So I don't know how much we can make it brief.
We can make it brief. And I think we need to start with saying we've been married, it'll be 18 years in August.
Yeah. Known each other 21 years.
Yeah. And so we met when she was 21 and I was 24, got married when she was 24 and I was 27. Mm-hmm. And it's flown by. I don't know how you feel, but I cannot believe how fast 18 years goes, to be honest.
I remember we had a set of neighbors when we first moved into one of our houses and they were married 10 years. And I was like, oh my God, that's a long time. And we became friends with them. And then 10 years came and I was like, oh shit, it goes by real fast. Whoa.
So we met at a gym in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And Lori was the brand new girl at the gym. And when I say brand new, like day one, she had just moved back from a different city.
Yeah.
In your words, kind of collect your life.
So I had just moved back home in with my parents after being out for a couple of years. So I was in a really not good place because I did not want to be moving back home. But just to summarize real quick, I had moved in with roommates.
We were all raised all three of us who lived together in a really restrictive religion. So when we moved out, it was not a good scene. It was like everybody was out being their most wild selves. And I was the only one who ended up having a job, and they stopped paying the rent, and there was lots of parties. They were making keys. There was a lot of drugs in my apartment. It was really bad. And I had to go. I called my dad. I said, don't tell mom, but things are really, really bad right now. I said, there's strangers who are sleeping in my house, and there's drugs, and I need to come home. And so I had about 6 months of that lease left. And I said, but I need to come home and make some money and just get my life together. So it was the last place that I wanted to go, was back home, because that kind of meant back under my parents' rules. And I had just come from 2 years of not having that. And so
I think for context, your mom had really strict rules.
Really strict rules. Really, really strict. So it was back to like 9 o'clock curfew. She wanted me to go back to, church with her.
I should be 21 and having a 9 o'clock curfew.
So I am moved back home. I'm still paying me
Now that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. Now I would love it.
I would love to go to bed at night.
She had me out till 2:30 the other night, and I was like, what is this?
Oh my God. No, what is this? I don't even know what that hour is. It's terrible. So long story short, I was sleeping in my little brother, who is 14 years younger than me, his room, because there was not a bedroom for me. And he ended up just sleeping in like my mom's like sewing room / little office space. And so I'm in this bedroom that has sticky stars on the ceiling, Star Wars on the wall, and dinosaurs on my headboard that are glowing in the dark. And I'm like, how did I get back here? So I have always known that fitness is kind of my way back to myself. And I was in an ugly place. I was drinking too much. It was just not a good place. And so I joined a gym. And I'm like, the gym is going to be my savior. This is going to be
Sanctuary.
my place, my sanctuary. And I go to the gym for the first day, and all of a sudden I sign up at the front, and the guy who's at the check-in guy, his name is Al, and he is very, very, very outgoing. And he says to me, I look at him and he says, oh, you have cop eyes. This is my first interaction.
As she's checking in.
As I'm checking. And I go, what are cop eyes? And he goes, you can see all the bad things I've been doing. And I'm like, this is really interesting. And this is the only gym for me to join, by the way. So I'm kind of like, this is my only saving grace here. So then he's like, I'm like, oh, okay. So I'd signed up, but this is my first day working out. And he goes, did you know I'm a model? So this was right after this, like immediately after. I go, I didn't know, because I've never met you. And he grabs a Shopko flyer.
Think pre-Instagram, right?
Pre-Instagram,
So
and shows me. Sure enough, that's his body in tidy whities, like kind of big belly, but like a ripped belly, And I was like, oh, there you are. Like, there you are, those tidy whities. So I check in, go put my stuff in the locker, and come out. And so I'm doing curls. And yes, so this gets me headed. I'm in the mirror. I have my old school headphones on, you guys, over the top, over the head. They're the wire, like over the ear. I had the Walkman. I had the bell. Oh yes, I did have a CD player at this time. So it was when they just started. And I had it strapped around my waist. Yep. And this guy comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder. And I put the weights down back on the rack. I'm like, he's literally tapping me on the shoulder, you guys.
Mid-set, not me, by the way.
Mid-set. I take my headphones down, I put the weights down, and he's like, hey. I'm like, hey. He's like, my name's Jake. And he points to his shoulder tattoo that says Jake on it.
Same
his
guy.
own name. Totally different guy.
A different guy from the front desk. So this is a different guy. So this is a second guy. And so points to Jake, like as if he forgets his name often and has to look down at his arm. And I'm like, hi, Jake. And he goes, do you smoke? I go, no, I don't. And he goes, no, not cigarettes. Do you smoke weed? I go, no. And he goes, oh, well, would you ever want to go smoke weed with me and my girlfriend after this? And I go, no. And so he just kind of looks at me puzzled, and he's like, okay, like kind of ditzy. And Chris knows Jake, so he knows this is very on par for him. So when I told him the story after, he's like, this is hilarious. And so I'm like in the twilight zone at this point. Now, poor Chris is the third guy to essentially hit on me.
I'm just a victim of that time.
Right?
That's all.
anything special, you guys. This is just what happens when you're in a small town and you look semi-normal, I guess.
So we're walking out of the gym, and I of course noticed her there, but by serendipity, she was parked right next to me in the parking lot. So we're walking out kind of side by side, same time. I might have kind of coordinated that. I'm sure it wasn't a coincidence.
What were you driving at the time?
Oh God, I don't remember. Probably like a Pontiac Grand Prix or something, right? And
was that my first
Grand Prix Grand Am.
yeah, I started with a Grand Am,
Yeah.
graduated up to Grand Prix.
I was in the metro.
Yeah, totally. Midwest. And so I looked over. It would have been awkward if I didn't look over. So I looked over and I said, "Hey, are you new here?" And that was it. And she looked at me and she goes, "Yep."
No, I don't think
And with like the kind of the head snap and just got in her car and closed the door. Yes, you did. I swear to God.
I was angry.
I have evidence. So
I was like, not another Jake.
right. That's exactly. So I got in my car and I remember thinking, oh, she sucks. Yeah. I got in my car and remember thinking, oh, well, she sucks. And I thought that was it. I'll never talk to her again. And a couple of months went by of us seeing each other at the gym and finally at the drinking fountain of all places. I'm
So
getting
high
a drink
school.
and I turned around and there's Lori and she felt guilty about how she treated me in the parking lot.
Because I watched him and everybody at this gym like loved him. I could tell. And he would walk in and people would light up and he was like the mayor. And I was like, oh, okay, this guy, everybody likes this guy.
Notice she just admitted guilt about, yes. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Guilt-
Anyhow, and she's like, "Hey, I never got to meet you," and that was the start, 21 years ago, of us building this life together. And
I friend zoned you hard though, which was great because I got to know you as a friend for like 6 months.
yes, I was persistent.
Mhm.
I'll tell you what, in these 21 years, we have had the craziest ups and the craziest downs,
Mhm.
and reset buttons, and maybe even near divorces.
Mhm.
And I think what's gotten us through all the different people you become, just think about it, from 21 to 24, and then 24 to 27, and then to 30 and 33, and then 30.
And 15 different people
Right?
more.
You become such different people, you should almost have different names along the way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what keeps you together is if you choose to grow together, because you're not going to stop from changing. Matter of fact, you shouldn't be obligated to stay the same. You should be changing. But as you change, you got to choose to change together. And we've always had this policy. We've always said that we're willing to try it on for size. And what I mean by that is just like trying on an outfit to see if it looks good on you or not. If she brings me a crazy idea, or if she wants to be a different person, I'll at least try it on for size before judging it, and vice versa. And I think that's what's kind of kept us in the game.
Mhm. And there's been so many of those moments that we learn or that we have kind of like the tough points for try it on for size, I think came from moments where I was doing something different that you were like, what are you doing? Or maybe you do something that I'm like, oh God, that's not what I expected out of this, where there are these moments in your relationship where, someone's going one way that you didn't expect. And communication is like it's the most important part of your relationship, because if you can just talk about it and go, hey, tell me about why you're interested in that. Like, maybe I'm missing something. I want to understand what this means to you. And that's always been, I think, really big for us, is to go, what does this mean to you and why? And then when you understand that, it helps you really get on board with it and go, okay, I don't need to love it. I don't need to even understand it. But if it means this for him, or if it means this for me, then I think that I can let that be whatever,
It's interesting. I think over the 18 years married, we had, when the last recession hit, 08, 09, I was in banking and we're living beyond our means at the time. So I thought all my promotions and all my bonuses would last forever.
Oh yeah, when you're young, you're just like, this is all going to be this way.
I lost my job after spending a year flying around, laying off probably 1,000 people one by one. And then it became my turn. And I came home and I told Lori, I said, babe, I've got something to tell you. I lost my job today. And in addition to that, we're going to have to sell this house that we just built, and we're going to have to get rid of the cars, and we're going to have to get rid of the rental properties. And really, we've been living beyond our means. And I was so scared to come home and tell her that, because back then my value was as a provider. The old school idea, like, I'm going to be the male and I'm going to be a good provider. And as long as I give her a life where she can be, right?
Men still feel that.
Yeah. I told Lori, basically, we're losing everything. Got to start over. And she was quiet and she took it all in. But instead of blowing up on me, or instead of blaming me, or instead of doing any of that stuff, I remember the first thing you said you looked at me after a while of silence and you said, I'm never going to let this happen again. And that really became your launching off point where you became the Lori that people know today. That's when you got into fitness. That's when you got into everything. So I guess if I'm saying anything, to span all those years together, and I'm sure we'll have more ups and downs in our future, hopefully more ups than downs. You just got to be a unit that says, when you're down, I'll get us. And when I'm down, you get us. And you just got to take turns, lifting each other up and kicking each other back in the game.
Mm-hmm. I'm impressed by how much confidence, you may not have even realized it took to say that, but you knew, you believed in yourself, and you were very fortunate to be with a woman who believed in herself. And back to a couple of things you guys said, everyone at this table here, there's 4 of us. We've all been together with our significant other for 20 years plus.
Wow.
We've been so many different people too.
Oh, over the last 20 years.
Oh my God. We've had the added benefit of having a pretty long timeline to experience each other's, different personalities, let's go on different types. And I think that, when you look back, man, we have so much to be thankful
outside
for.
of college graduation and stuff.
We
If you
have
think about
such a rich experience of life together already. And, there's personal and also business. And I think that's something that we'll talk about today. It's just what's it like working with that person you've known for 20 years. It's interesting. So it's like working with 10 different people and there's just one of them.
It's so funny that you say too, honoring each other's new things that you're interested in. Because curiosity is so important in life and relationships and what you want to do in the future, and playing. We need to play to figure out what fits. And it's so crazy too, being parents and you see your kids playing all day. And you're like, when did that stop? At what point did someone say, okay, stop playing, choose one career, choose one thing, and live with it and never try anything new ever again. And it is so scary. But I remember moving in with Brian for the first time. You don't know this story. And I really, really wanted to launch toneitup.com. He actually came up with the name, but I was I wanted so many things, but I was embarrassed to have a journal. And I lived with him for the first time, that I would actually hide my journal of my goals and stuff. Cause I was afraid that he.
It's going to think it's weird.
Yeah. And if you're in a relationship where you feel you're going to be judged or whatever. And I don't even know if I was afraid of judgment. I just thought we were moving in together for the first time, and he got the tripod and the camera and everything, but I didn't want him to see my goals. Cause I was what if it fails? Or, and we had such a strong bond already, but I think that we all do that where we're a little embarrassed about maybe some of our dreams.
Yep.
And then I woke up one day and I was I'm going to start leaving it out and see what happens. And you were fine with it. And it was all in my head.
Oh, I wasn't snooping around reading that. I probably thought it was your diary.
It was a notebook with my goals and what I wanted to do for YouTube, because YouTube was new. But I love what you said, because it pulled things out of you that I haven't thought about that in so long. But I'm a big journal. Everything that I feel I've gone through is in a journal. But I was so embarrassed. It's someone find your diary.
Yeah,
remember the ones with keys? I should have a key.
Totally. It's the this is who you think you are. It's that moment. It's the reveal. It's wait, so you think you can do this? And it's the opt-in of when you share that, having your partner go, even if at first you're okay, I've had moments where maybe it's somebody in your life says they can do, or they think they can do something, and your response you should work on it right now to have it be great. How can I support you? I see this in you for sure.
This is interesting. When Lori, so back to that timeline, when I'm hey, babe, we're losing everything. She said, hey, this will never happen again. She got into fitness. She started doing really well right away in the beginning, and that lit a fire in her. And I remember she's I want to really take this serious. I really want to get covers. I really want to do all these things that she ended up doing. And there was this moment, this inflection point. Talk about proclaiming your goals and will your partner support you or not. There was this inflection point where I would tell her, now remember, we're starting over financially, so money's a stress. I would tell her, babe, go for it. Babe, yes, babe, I support you. But then my actions would back it up. So when she would go buy a whole bunch of chicken and a whole bunch of fresh produce and come home with a great big grocery bill, I would complain about it and borderline harass her about it. Or when she would have to buy one of these, $18 trillion bikinis for a stage.
By the way,
Remember how
it is expensive.
It's expensive. And I was this major point of resistance for her through my actions.
Yeah.
And she sat me down. And this is one of the best things that she's ever done. She sat me down. She said, all right, listen, this is not working. She said, you tell me that you want me to do this. You tell me you want me to go for it. You tell me you want me to get the covers and all this. And I really believe I can. But then all you do is complain when I spend the money or when I have to go to this thing or buy this bikini. And she looked at me and she said, so tell me now, are you either in and we're going to do this, or are we quitting? Right now, you decide. Are you in? Do you support this? Or are we quitting? And my immediate visceral answer was, oh, we're in. Like, I actually meant it that we're in. And I didn't realize that my actions were holding her back. And until you sometimes sit down, first you proclaim your dreams, but then sit down and stand up for them the way she did. And that's not easy to do to your partner sometimes. Had you not done that, who knows what would have happened?
I can't live, and I think people are probably listening, feeling it right now. Like, I can't live with the mixed messages, and for me, it was, if there's something in your life that's really holding you back, and I wanted him bought in. So it was a moment of me having to actually face off with myself and go, I mean, what you didn't know is I was having a moment with myself going, I have to believe in me. Like, this is the moment for me that I'm going to believe that this can happen. And I'm going to, I have to bring this to you and say, I'm going all in. This is going to be what we're going to do. And we either have to both be all in or we have to be all out, because I can't live halfway anymore.
Yeah.
And the halfway life gets you halfway results, which aren't results at all. And I think those were the moments in our life where, by the way, the stories you're hearing are like, if you're in a rock bottom, I think it's the most powerful place you can be.
Yep.
When everything that you thought was going to be gets ripped away from you, I think that's when your ultimate purpose gets to come out, and you get the opportunity to choose to become the person you got sent here to be. And I think that is what that was for us.
When I lost that career, I was working for the world's largest bank, maybe the most important era of our life, right? Because this is when all this was going on. We were taking all these different detours, right? And so I was one of the fastest rising executives at the world's largest bank, and I thought it was going to last forever. Hence the whole spending next year's money and all that kind of thing. And when I lost that career, I thought my life was over as a man.
How old were you?
I would have been 29 at the time.
Oh, isn't that so crazy?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm so old. There's nothing left for me. I'm supposed to have it all figured out. There is so much pressure on men.
There's so much pressure on men and women. Men, we bury it down like we're supposed to be strong.
Yeah. There's pressure on women, but we vocalize it. There's groups, there's all these things. We have podcasts about it, but men,
Yeah, we're supposed to be macho or something. Well, I remember I was stripped of my identity. So my identity at the time was, what was my title? What was my next promotion? And how many people do I lead? And I was stripped of my identity. I was stripped of my purpose. I was stripped of what I thought was important, being a quote provider. And I felt like an absolute loser, like a shell of a partner to Lori. And I remember having so much insecurity around, is she even going to want to be with me going forward? Because I had no plan. I didn't know what I was going to do next. Mm-hmm. My only experience was banking in a banking recession. And if you remember back then, it was like the end of the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the thing about where I'm trying to bring this is, when you are at absolute rock bottom and when you're stripped of everything, either physically or mentally or both, it feels like garbage in the moment. But the truth is, it's one of the best gifts you can ever be given, because you get to choose again. You don't get to choose again when you got momentum. You don't get to choose again when everything's going your way. You don't get to choose again when you're stuck on the freeway and you're going, 80 miles an hour. But when you're forced to sit out and you're stripped of everything, you get to choose again. And I remember saying, how do I want to add value this time? How do I want to show up this time? What do I really want to do that would make me happy this time? And it's just, you got to look back at those moments. And if you're going through it right now, you got to understand you're going to look back on this moment and it's going to be a gift. It's not going to last forever.
I think we have a teaser for the episode right there. You guys, we're pouring another glass of wine, but when we first got here, Brian, of course, he's an inspector. You can hear the wine pouring. And he was just looking at the beams of the ceiling and looking at the hardware and trying to solve any problems they have. Like, oh, if you want to do this, you can actually sandblast that. And then he like, oh, let me look at the fridge. And he's like, is this what you guys eat? And then he went in the pantry.
Oh my God.
No, you do. I see salted roasted pistachio.
Where are you from? Where were you born?
New Hampshire.
Okay, so this is like Midwest love. So you know that you are in the inner circle when you walk into someone's home and you go in their fridge and you look at their pantry and you see how they live. And that is literally, it is the sign that you are like in the circle.
He's
it just
Kramer,
made me so happy.
If you're wondering how they live, they drink a lot of fluids, and I don't know if they eat.
There's
but
more-
DoorDash, just DoorDash.
There's more dog food and
It's human food.
fuel for those puppies than there is for you guys
We're
as humans.
really working on it, you guys. No, it's a thing for us right now that we are trying to get back to healthy, which actually when we do order DoorDash, it's usually healthy.
Ish.
But we're working really hard to try to get back to that. Actually, we're not working.
You bought an air fryer and it's been sitting there for a month.
Yeah.
She's using it tonight.
I bought an air fryer and I did it on Amazon, so that wasn't very hard. So
Talk to me about that time in 2007. Well, we're going into recession.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, especially men in relationships, will feel shame.
Mm.
How did you sit with your shame and how did you come out of it? Because shame is such a horrible feeling, especially for men who don't talk about, suicide rates are higher for men. Men don't share about their feelings or if they're actually thinking about ending their life. And it is a problem, and it's going to be even greater over the next couple years.
Hey y'all, I'm so excited to share with you that this podcast, Earn Your Happy, is now a part of the Growth Day Podcast Network. Truly, this is like one of the most exciting things that has ever happened to me. I'm telling you, I no longer feel like I'm doing this alone, and I actually get to collaborate with the people who host the podcast that I'm obsessed with, like that I have been listening to myself, who inspired me to start a podcast, who have taught me about how to go and do the thing, like the original people who got me motivated through listening to their podcasts. You guys, a bunch of us are coming together to bring more growth to the world and to support shows and brands that we believe in. And one of my friends are also on this network, and I'd love for you to go subscribe to their show. You guys, I just had Danielle Canty on of the Boss Babe podcast. She co-hosts it with her other amazing co-host and one of my friends, Natalie Ellis. You guys, you can go check out that podcast on mine. It's episode 925, and Danielle and I talk all about burnout and how that could be showing up in your life, and most importantly, how to prevent it. But I want to tell you, if you have not gone and checked out the Boss Babe podcast yet, go subscribe, because it is one of the largest online communities for ambitious women and female entrepreneurs. And I know that if you're listening to the show, chances are that's probably you. You guys, they have 3.6 million followers and 380,000 subscribers. The Boss Babe podcast is the place where they share real behind the scenes of building successful businesses, achieving peak performance, and learning how to balance it all. Most of all, you guys, truly, these women are in my life. Danielle and Natalie are people that I text on a weekly, monthly basis when I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel stuck. What should I do? I tune into their podcast, you guys, to learn. Even though they're my friends, I am still like crazy obsessed with this podcast because I learn something new every single time I listen. It makes me be a better podcaster. It makes me be a better businesswoman. It just makes me be better and more confident out in the world because they're so real and raw. And I can tell you that in the moments where I have had horrible days, down days, I've either gone and listened to this podcast or I've texted them, because these are the people who truly get it. You want to listen to the people who are walking in the same footsteps that you are. You guys, go check out the Boss Babe podcast. You're not going to be sorry. And it's just going to like make you way smarter and you're going to have way more fun. So go check it out. Hey y'all, if you didn't know, Earn Your Happy is now a part of the Growth Day Podcast Network. This is so exciting to me because I have been looking for a really good home for the show for
I can't even tell you, years, literally. And now I've finally been able to come together and collaborate with other people who have incredible shows, and I want to share them with you. One of the shows is Motivation with Brendan Bouchard. And you guys, if you don't know about the beginning of my career, I literally started with Brendan Bouchard's work. It's how I launched one of my very first online courses and membership sites, was because he gives so much advice that you can integrate and implement immediately. And that's what you're going to get on the show. Not just motivation, but you're going to learn exactly how to get your stuff out in the world. And not just that, but Brendan runs in the most incredible group of humans who are really doing the thing out in the world that you want to be doing. So go check it out. Go subscribe to Motivation with Brendan Bouchard. I promise you, this is going to be one of those shows that no matter when you tune in, you're going to get value. Like, it's not one of those that you're like, God, I listened for 30 minutes and I didn't get what I wanted. Like, from the beginning, you're going to get something that changes your life or changes your business. So go check it out. Motivation with Brendan Bouchard. I know you're going to love it. I'm obsessed.
And it's interesting. I just got done saying I was totally stripped of my identity and felt like a shell of a partner and had no value and was afraid that she was going to leave me. And add to that, I had gained like 30 pounds at the time. So I didn't even feel like a sexy partner. Like, I mean, literally rock bottom.
Mm-hmm. But did you also feel like maybe you had something to live for because you had her?
You know what's interesting? The fact that she was like, I'm never going to let this happen again. And then started taking all this action. I felt like this feeling that she had my back and she was going to carry us for a while. And it almost gave me permission to take some time to figure out how I want to show up again. Mm-hmm. And, you asked about what I do, who do I talk to? I didn't have the type of friends that you talk to about this stuff back then. It was just like bros. And add to that, this was probably 12, 13, 14 years ago. So it wasn't even widely talked about for men yet.
In the Midwest, it was not.
There weren't podcasts. There weren't anything like that.
Started looking at your feelings.
Yeah. And so I was probably in a dangerous position because I didn't have many people to talk to about these things. But I remember this is when I found self-development. There was some kind of event coming to town, and one of my coworkers had been before. He's like, hey, this thing's coming to town. You should go to it. And I remember thinking, why would I go to something like that? Even though I'm hurting inside, right? And I brought it home and I told Lori, and you know what's funny? I wonder why I told you. Subconsciously, I must have wanted it.
So I remember the story. I was asking for it because my panic attacks were getting so bad that I was starting to not want to be around people. So I started getting so socially, so much social anxiety that before we would go out with anyone, I hate to even say this, but I was drinking 4 or 5 beers, literally, before we would go to dinner with people. And then at dinner, I would drink like 4 or 5 more drinks. Mm-hmm. And what's sad is this was kind of socially acceptable in Wisconsin at the time. Mm-hmm. And so my coping mechanisms were so bad and I had such big dreams that I knew that these were not working well together. So, and I wanted to be a speaker. I wanted to be out in the world, but my anxiety and panic attacks had gotten to a point where they were debilitating. So I'd asked Chris, I said, I don't know who to ask, but would you just go to work? Because I'd never been in corporate America. Like, I never even knew what that looked like. I said, would you just ask around your office if anybody knows if there's like a therapist or an event or something I could go to? So you started asking about it and your coworker told you.
And the most unlikely guy, like of everybody in the office, the guy that would get drunk and naked at the office. So I'm telling you, so many, the people that change your life are the ones that you don't expect. So I asked around and he's the guy you think would make fun of you for asking. He's like, dude, I got it. You got to go to this thing. It's called Landmark Forum and it's coming to town. And so I came home and I told Lori and she said, we're going. And I remember tickets were $600 a person back then.
Wow.
And
a lot of money.
We thought it might as well have been $6,000 a person.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to us, that was a ton of money back then. So never been to self-development, have to spend this money on these tickets. And I went and I remember thinking, and I'm not proud of this, but if you've ever been to something like this, people take turns getting up on the mic and they share their problems. I remember thinking, oh my God, these people have so many problems. I'm glad I'm not like them. Now, remember, I'm riddled with problems. This is like me in denial, me just being your typical guy. And I went from judging everybody that first day to the third day, having so many breakthroughs and such a different perspective on life and learning things like nothing has any meaning other than the meaning that you apply to it. And the concept of stories, building stories around things. And You find evidence to support what you want to believe. All these things are fundamentals of how we live today. I wouldn't have found that without going there that weekend. And that became the tipping point for me, just wanting to go all in and find as much self-development as possible. So the short answer to your question would be, now this stuff is readily available. Back then, there weren't podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't as many books. You couldn't access, they weren't accessible on audio, right? It's not like, it wasn't prevalent for men to talk about this stuff the way it is today. Today, there are a lot more choices. So if someone's hurting, if somebody feels like they've been stripped of their identity, if someone's scared, go seek all of these different modalities to dive into some form of self-development until you find the one that fits you.
I feel like if we can offer anything from now being old,
Yeah.
it is that those are the moments that really have made us. Without those moments, we would have never gotten to deepen our relationship, gotten to like find these things that you're not seeking the stuff that changes your life until these things happen. And so if anybody is sitting in it right now, like, I believe those are the gifts. They just are. They're the tipping points that make you do things you would never do. They're the things that make you go and seek people and like figure out these skills in your marriage and how to communicate that you would never normally need. So those are kind of my favorite parts about our marriage and just friendships and relationships, are those moments that are like, what now? Never thought I'd see ourselves here.
Well, it's interesting that you were struggling with your panic attacks, which I only started having those within the last couple of years. And if any of you have never had a panic attack, it's like the world feels like it's ending and you cannot move your body. And you were looking for something, and you gave him permission as a male to ask a male colleague if there was something happening, and he had a breakthrough all weekend.
Interesting.
And he wouldn't have gone through that. It was like giving permission to each other as a couple is so important, in a way that maybe if you express your needs, the other person may need it even more.
Yeah. Wow.
And you don't even know.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm also a big believer now. When you express your needs to other people, you're actually giving them a chance to use their gifts.
Yes.
If you hold it all in, if you don't ask for help, if you don't express your needs, you're actually robbing people around you that could feel value. Like, people have a chance to add value. You're robbing them of that opportunity.
This is such a theme, though. This came up on our podcast that Kat and I just recorded before this, is the closest relationships I have in my life is because one of the parties came to the person and was vulnerable and said, I either need this, or, this is where I'm at, or can you come help me this weekend on this project? Like, those were the moments that have made my best friends, is because we had to lean on each other so hard. Wow. Like, one of my best friends was created, Lindsay Schwartz, was because we were doing an event together, but during the event, my dog died while I was not home. And she saw me in the most horrendous, I don't have children. This is my first dog. It happened while I was away.
It's like our child.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a funny full circle thing? So Lori's away at this event, can't come back. I have to put the dog down. Who comes to spend the day with me? Brian. I don't know if you remember this or not.
That was a rough day.
Circle.
And we didn't even know each other that well at
No.
that point, but for whatever reason, I just was like,
And
yeah.
So my question is, because this proves my point, because I'm bonding with one of my best friends while I'm gone and you're with him. Did you feel like you guys got way closer because you went through a hard time together?
Absolutely.
For sure.
For sure.
For sure.
That became the bond. That became the foundation right there.
And letting you, Chris, see, or like letting Brian see you in that really vulnerable time is like what makes relationships.
Yep.
So the things that we think will make relationships are actually not. It's like the moments when someone can lean on you, when someone needs you.
It's almost, to me, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but an honor for someone to call and ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, wow, they trust me with this. Yes, I'm in. What do you need? And you drop everything because you're like, I'm going to do this because this person actually really cares about me, obviously, because they want me to come into their most, their darkest moment. Which
It's maybe the highest honor to have somebody trust you in their time of need, right? Lori taught me something a long time ago. feel like I learned all my best things from Lori. There's a key to it.
Stop.
You're so cute.
Her love language is words of affirmation. Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh,
You write me a card, I will cherish that.
Mhm. Yeah, but
thanks, Brian.
if I get her a physical gift, she's like,
Like, what's this?
I mean, I'll take a
No, where I got her was our wedding vows. So like I had just met her, and a couple months later, I went to Australia for like a study abroad semester and all that. And I had a journal, probably because I saw you journaling or something. And I actually wrote like someday I'm going to marry you, and like put all these things out in the world, and then read the journal entries. Like,
I had written my vows 5 minutes before I walked on the aisle. Brian wrote his vows 10 years before.
oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Anywho, that's for another episode. Okay.
Now I want to ask about your love language.
I love the dichotomy between the two. I mean, I think, we're the same way. This is the mark of a good partnership. You said that, you had fun and you partied and he was like extra good, back when you first met. You're the type to write your vows 5 minutes before, so am I. He
I was like,
wrote
I
them
need
10
to
years
get the whole
earlier.
thing.
Yeah.
It was intentional.
Those are the relationships that work good. Yeah, it's a completely side random thought, but people always ask, hey, how do I find a partner like Lori? How do I find a partner like so-and-so? The truth is you don't find somebody like how we are now. You find somebody that you have a few common foundational things in common with, right? Ours was fitness, working out, and we were both big dreamers. And then somebody who also has extreme opposites of you instead of trying to find a perfect match, because it's those opposites that makes the other person interesting, and they have something to add to your value, to your life, right? They kind of fill your gaps.
And they pull things out of you
Yes.
that you wouldn't have
That you wouldn't
necessarily.
have.
He wouldn't
Yes.
dance, and then now he's like the life of the party dancing. Little happy feet. That's the beautiful part of a relationship, is that you can also complement each other and your qualities, and then pull things out of each other that you didn't necessarily see yourself.
Yeah.
And that's such a nice thing about you guys, is like, one of your greatest qualities is you see someone and their potential. If things push you down, you having a partnership or a friend or anything, that's so important in friendships too. So thank you guys for being those people for us.
You know how you run parallel lives, and it's like you guys are living your life over here and we're over here. And sometimes once in a while we intersect, but our journeys haven't intersected a lot, but at the same time, we're on the same road. And what's funny is, like, I have these people in my head, and you're one of these people and couples who have always inspired me along the way. And
Bar setters.
yeah, definitely bar setters. Like, you guys set the bar on what, even relationship wise, I feel like you guys have been out there, and the importance of even being vulnerable and showing what's going on in your lives and just in your business and being, I don't know, just, I feel like you've been showing the journey and been fully you. And I think that has been just like so inspiring, knowing you guys.
I've got a great tangible example. First time you guys had us over for dinner in your beautiful Manhattan Beach home. I remember
my favorite house.
I got there and I was watching Brian be the ultimate host, the ultimate cook, the ultimate decorator, the ultimate everything. And I left, I don't know if you remember, I was in the car. I'm like, oh, I gotta fucking step it up.
Yeah, and I was like, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, I was like, I'm seriously, it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call. We talked about it.
Love language is entertaining, though.
Oh.
I could appreciate that. And also, after being married for this long, like, so appreciate the things that you do and your unique gifts for not doing that. I'm like, that's not his zone of genius. He'll never be that. So I'm not going to hold him. I'm not going to hold him to that whatsoever, because I don't want him to go to something and hold me to something. And I'm like, hey, you know what, Chris, love me for me.
Yeah, did you see what she was doing?
Yeah. Did you see how dressed up she got? I was like, don't.
Brian got the nickname of Dad in college by his own roommates.
Oh, wow.
Because he was not only making sure everyone was having a good time and the doors were locked and not getting in trouble. He lived with the basketball players, but he
tuck them in and read them bedtime stories.
Yeah, he was like, do your dishes, you guys. Wash your. They were all athletes, so like wash your clothes. It smells in here. No, he should have been an RA. He was basically an RA with a bunch of athletes he was like the guy studying management at Bentley. And they would all be like, oh, dad. And when I first started dating him, I'm like, oh, that's funny. And then all my girlfriends, without knowing that, we didn't mix and mingle friends yet, all were like, hey, dad. Cause he was like, keys, phone, wallet. Do you have your purse? Making sure we're all taking.
Well,
yeah.
Funny.
And then like,
Are you hungry?
yeah. Is your glass filled? Like, do you need anything? His love language is making sure that everyone in the room is taken care of, but also safe.
Acts of service.
And protected. Yes. Oh my goodness.
So is your language acts of service? Do you like that?
I just love receiving it.
Yeah.
Well, there's the love language.
You can feed me, babe.
No, I
And
think
tell me-
the love language is actually helping other people.
I know,
You
but
get
it's-
so much out of particularly helping women like experience their
yeah.
best, most confident
I
self.
love-
That is
I love
what makes me
nothing
feel
more than seeing my friends thrive and feel powerful.
How many names of like we were on a walk. I distinctly remember this, and she's like, "What should I name this podcast?" I'm like, "Duh!" It's like name it what your mission is, the emotion you want your listeners to feel. You want them to live beautifully, whatever that means.
Oh my God, I
And
love
she's
when
like,
my girlfriends feel beautiful. Like there's nothing better. I just want to set up photo shoots. Actually, I'm doing it. So
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'll just inviting myself.
come because we're doing a whole content shoot. And I told my sister-in-law, who's a photographer, Katie Scott, Catherine Scott Photography,
Very
shout out.
nice.
It makes me feel. I think she's so Canadian on Instagram. So
Yeah. And whatever you're into,
You gotta change
that's
that.
what we can.
I say Katie, she's in my phone still as Katie Deans, but she married Brian's brother and now we're sisters, which is amazing.
Oh,
and
I
like,
love that.
do you want to set up a shoot? But like, how fun to help with hair and makeup and make people feel so beautiful.
We are so similar on that. So similar.
It's just, it's nice.
Mhm.
I would love to be, I don't know, maybe the future I would be on the other side of the camera and help women in all ways, like not only feeling beautiful on the outside, but on the inside. So
Just think about what you were doing back in college, like when we met. Like you were like head trainer at the gym at Keene State. And you were also where every one of your girlfriends would go to get ready and have their makeup, their hair, their clothing all figured out before like going to the railroad bar. Shout out to the railroad.
go out with like a wet head. They just got out of the shower. I'm like, let's blow out your hair. Yeah. I just want everyone to feel pretty and feel confident and smart. And
monetize that. If you can monetize doing what you love and helping other people, that's the formula. And people get stuck. They choose jobs, they choose income sources saying, well, I don't really think you could monetize X, Y, and Z, or, oh, I feel guilty charging for X, Y, and Z. And then they get stuck. They get stuck in a job they don't want to be doing. They get stuck in a salary that they are totally misaligned. If people would only say the way you were so passionately, oh, I just want to help people feel beautiful and do this and that, and make that their career at the same time, that's a win-win for everybody.
Money is an act of faith. You put money up and you say, I am putting, it's money where, put your
mouth is.
Put money where your mouth is. It literally says, I'm gambling this. I'm putting this down because I believe this is where I'm meant to be. This is what we're meant to do. And I'm going to put this here. It is literally putting your flag in the ground.
I've got examples of where we spent money where we never should have, but it worked out because it was an act of faith and demonstrating abundance. Buying those 2 $600 tickets when we were completely starting over financially. Matter of fact, so I got a big severance package. We had to use all of it to pay off debt. Still had debt left over. We had just built this great big house that we had to short sell. I like to say I made short selling cool because I did it before everybody else was doing it. And we had to sell all of our furniture on Craigslist that we had just furnished the house with, right? So one by one, cars would pull up in front of the house and people would come into the home. They'd bargain for the couch, they'd bargain for the TV, they'd bargain for whatever.
Pennies on a dollar.
Yeah.
Pennies.
But here's what happened. We had just enough cash by doing that to prepay 1 year's lease on this really expensive condo building down in uptown Minneapolis at the time. Now, the condo that we got in there was a mother-in-law suite. Literally, it was somebody's extra unit from their unit upstairs. This was downstairs. They put it up for lease, and I was able to prepay 1 year's lease on that so we could have the runway to reinvent ourselves and figure out how are we going to make our comeback. And there would have been better places for me to put that money. There would have been textbook smarter places for me to put that money than prepaying that place. We could have stayed in a much cheaper apartment or condo, but I knew that that place was going to inspire us. I knew that place was going to make us feel abundant. I knew that there were going to be connections and people in that place that gave us ideas and helped us with our comeback. And guess what? There were. Like, shout out to Nick Larson, still to this day. He owned a hedge fund. He's like 27 with a hedge fund. And he's like, oh, let me teach you really about money and how it works. I wouldn't have known Nick and gotten those lessons without fighting our way into that building that we should have been. And so whether it's a ticket to an event, or whether it's a certain place that you feel like you need to live, or whether it's a plane ticket to New York to do the interviews.
Got to be in it and around it.
Sometimes you have to make these, quote, irresponsible demonstrations of abundance to stick your flag in the ground and say, here's where I'm going, or here's what I need. And it'll absolutely pay dividends when you do those brave things.
Yeah. I just want to share one more, because when we had started making some money with network marketing, but we were by no means doing great whatsoever. And I wanted to host women's events and also do like personal development, women's events. The main thing was doing events. I was going to a lot of personal development events at the time, and I wanted to give that back to other women. And I believed in them so wholeheartedly because of what it had done for us. And I wanted to learn how to do them. And I hadn't heard of anybody teaching how to do them. And I loved Jack Canfield at the time, and he had done Chicken Soup for the Soul. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but I had subscribed to all of his emails, and he had sent an email out that said train the trainer, and he was only taking 70 people for this train the trainer. And if you took this course, you would learn how to put on events and be able to take people through meditations and workshops.
You were definitely a first mover in that.
I was definitely a first mover.
You were.
And
which is brave.
So he sent this out, and I was like, this is me. I need to know how to train these people. Oh my God, I want to do meditation. I want to do all these things. And so I click on it. I'm bought in. I'm reading the email. I'm like, I am doing this. I was so committed. I click on the link to see how much it is.
$25,000.
$5,000. No. I know where I was at the moment. I was in Santa Monica. I was in Palisades Park. I was on a run. And for some reason, like, I think I had my like dings on for my email or something. I don't know why I looked at it. Maybe I stopped because I was tired. I have no idea. And I was reading this email, and I was like, I knew I had to do it. We didn't have the money.
Yep.
Did not have the money.
She was so scared to tell me.
And I tell him, and I'm like, I'm going to do this. I committed the moment I read the email and I saw the price. I'm like, I'm doing this.
And by the way, she didn't ask.
I didn't ask.
She informed me. And I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. There are people listening who are like, you either know or you don't.
Yeah.
You either know or you don't. And I knew that if I did this, that I don't know where this came from, but I don't know if this quote like literally came from this moment, but it's something that I say all the time, like, because it's who I am and how I have to be. You have to put so much on the line that your higher self is forced to come out. This was my first moment of putting so much on the line that my higher self had to come out and become the woman who could either make this much money and live into this, that it's ridiculous thinking about it. We did not have 25K. We did not have 5K, but we put it on a credit card. I went. I have never been more scared at an event in my entire life. The whole thing, I felt like fraud through the whole thing. But at the same time, it was like, this is what you do to become the person that you know you're meant to be. So that was a huge thing for us. That was a huge leap of faith. That was the moment when money became very real, like as in money became this, like, put your money where your mouth is. And if I put this money down, this means that I have to show up as the person who I need to become, who I need to be, to make this happen. And that was a huge moment for me.
And I also want to make sure we enroll everybody, right? Because the example was a $25,000 example, which is a good, powerful one. And then, we had the example of the $600 tickets, and the example of prepaying the 1 year lease by selling all of our furniture on Craigslist. Your question originally that kind of brought some of those stories out was, what can somebody do? And the point of those answers was, well, you can get brave and stick your stake in the ground, but I also want to address people that are like, I don't have $5. Access to self-development, access to business knowledge, access to learning has never been easier or a lower barrier of entry than it is right now. Like right now, kudos to all of you listening to this podcast, because it's free to listen to the podcast for the most part, as long as you have internet. And you can get so much value. You can learn everything you need to learn. You can get all the inspiration you need to get. All of the podcast hosts can be your accountability partner, metaphorically speaking, to kick you back in the game when you need it. But you got to be intentional. You got to download it every day. You got to hit play every day. You got to do it when you don't feel like it. You got to build it in your schedule, and you got to be consistent about it.
Our goal this year is to listen to multiple podcasts every day. And I love your, what is it called? The Power 9.
Yeah.
So share that with Brian.
Power 9 is 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things you're excited about, and 3 things that you're manifesting
For the day.
for the day.
And we do it out loud to each other. So it's not like we're secretly saying it.
Negotiable.
Non-negotiable. So we go for our morning walk, which is also non-negotiable. And I got to be like real. Most of the time we don't feel like doing it. Either we're still groggy, or we already had a mini argument, or the dog's pissed on the floor, or who knows what. Something has already happened, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
So we don't feel like it most of the time. But one of us will always say, all right, come on, time for the Power 9.
Yeah.
And there's almost anger sometimes as a reaction of the other person. But nonetheless, we do it. And by the end of doing that simple thing, 18 statements, right? 9 from me, 9 from Lori.
Takes about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Changes everything. It changes our perspective. It changes our mood. It changes our feeling. It's, guys, doing the right things that'll propel you forward. They're not difficult. In terms of executing, they're actually quite simple things to do.
Yeah.
Getting yourself to do them is the difficult part.
Yeah.
But if you would just take that extra step and do the rather simple things on a consistent basis, you'd be amazed at how it changes everything.
It's so good to hear that there are most days that you don't want to do it. Because everyone has their shit, pun intended, like a dog that takes poop out of a litter box, for example, and smears around that, or a baby. There's always going to be that. I mean, we all just have so much stuff, but if you have your non-negotiable, and a good partnership is where one of you says, we got to go. So there's always, and if you're on your own right now, you've got to do it. And we can be your people to make sure that you do it, and we can hold you accountable too. But if you do that every day, it could change your life. So I feel like we're going to start doing it. We'll check in with you guys.
And you're not going to feel like it.
We're going to be
But you gotta
annoyed.
do
We'll
it
text you.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Little side note, we were sucking boogers out of an 8-month-old's nose every 2 hours for the last probably 48 hours. So that is like, just, we don't want to do it. And like, how are we going to talk about the power of 9 when you've got a sick child?
Yeah.
And like literally sucking
You don't want
boogers.
sucking.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
do it
so
well.
grateful for,
Multitask.
I'm so grateful I get to suck boogers out of this baby, because we dreamed of this baby. That's how sometimes our Power 9 starts.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so glad I got to clean shit off the couch this morning, because I wanted this second dog so badly. And that's sometimes how they start.
It's funny because, you mentioned you're sucking boogers out of your baby for, every 2 hours, and it's not fun. It's hard to have gratitude in that moment. But then you got to remember there's always, and I'll just use ourselves as an example. Lori and I are trying to have a baby, and it's been a very long journey. And we wish we could suck boogers out of a baby right now.
Great.
we wanted to talk about this, and thank you guys for, obviously we checked in before we started recording to be able to talk about this, and you haven't, right?
We haven't talked about this at all.
Wow.
Publicly, period.
No.
You guys, this is it. This is living beautifully, but living messy, living sad and living heartbroken, but pulling yourself through. And I'd love to talk to you guys a little bit about, your fertility journey. Lori, you were talking about you spent so many years trying not to get pregnant.
You really do. And it's interesting. There's so much, you guys, around getting pregnant and around being even with your partner and just all the things, having children. Like, I come from a really religious background and a restrictive religious background. So I think there's a lot of things even around sexuality for women that are a lot. And I think with our fertility journey, I just haven't shared it at all because the whole conversation for me has been like, should it be sacred? Should it be shared? Should it be, there's a lot of pressure on the whole conversation. And so when Chris and I first started trying to have children, I just immediately, for me, because I spent so much of my life trying not to get pregnant, I was like, well, I'm going to get pregnant right away.
That was going to be easy.
I'm going to think about it and I'm going to be pregnant. And for those of you listening, I'm 42. I don't feel 42. I think I'm 35. I think I'm 30. I don't really know. Age starts to become like, you guys know.
Stops mentally at a certain age. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Everything should stop at 16 for me.
Chris and I, because we went through what we went through financially, I think that we, and me coming from parents who had gone bankrupt, and then also us losing all of our money and all of our things. For me, finances were really big and they were really important. I didn't want to have a child come into a household that ever thought about money. I wanted money to be a conversation about energy and what was possible. Meaning, I don't want that to sound too woo-woo, like around, I wanted money to be a positive thing. I wanted it to be looked at as something that was very possible for them and something that was a part of our everyday conversation. And so for us, we spent a lot of time healing our past and focusing on our businesses and making sure that we felt really solid. I didn't want my child to come into a household that felt uncertain about abundance. And so for us, we put a lot of our career first. And there could be a lot of anyone who is maybe thinking of putting it on hold or whatever that looks like, for Chris and I, we waited. So we waited a while. And so I think when we found out after deciding we wanted to try to get pregnant and then realizing we couldn't right away, because we tried for about 3 years naturally and we just did not get pregnant. And I was like, how is this possible? You guys, I'm a bit like spiritual as well. I was doing all the things like, this is the night I'm going to get pregnant. This how it's going to be. God told me the sun and the moon and the stars, and they're all aligned. This is going to be how it is. And I just really thought that if I thought about it and manifested it and really just, I felt like there were some moments I felt it, like I really thought I was pregnant and it didn't happen for us. And so there's some disappointment in there. There's some like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? And I tried not to go there as much as possible. And so for you and I, there might've been a little guilt around, did we wait too long? And you have to cast all those stories aside.
It's interesting because she mentioned she's 42, I'm 45. So there is some of that guilt around, did we miss our window? Did we screw this up? And it's interesting perspective. I don't think I've said this to you, but I watch you beat yourself up, almost like you're taking the blame for it. When my perspective is it's ridiculous because it could be as much me as it is you. And it's funny, both been a doctor and both of us individually are fine. So you never know like what's at play or what's at work. I'm just attached to having a family. So that's my only outcome. I'm not attached to what it looks like or how we get there or anything like that. I'm just attached to the outcome being that we have a family because I love making memories. I'm like, especially lately, ever since my dad passed away a couple of years ago unexpectedly, it's accelerated my drive to be a memory maker for the family. It's my favorite thing to do now. So I think there's some healthy perspective to not being attached to how, but instead just being attached to one way or another, making it happen. But all that being said, and I believe that when I say that, the other day when we found out, there's another round of embryos that, aren't healthy enough to move forward. It was the first time I thought, oh shit, I might not literally be able to carry my DNA on. Mm-hmm. And that was a really sad day. That was a hard one to digest.
We may not ever know what you and I could make together, and that's okay.
Yep. But we're also not going to give up trying.
Mm-hmm. What you make together has nothing to do with your blood. Mm-hmm. And it has everything to do with your heart.
That's true.
And nothing will make what you went through make you feel better. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying to you doesn't make it okay. You can be mad. But I will tell you, just from our experience, when you grow your family and you meet whoever it is that comes into your family, however they come into this world, when you meet them and it's their birthday or their adoption day or however you guys end up deciding, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And you cannot even imagine it any other way. And when you're in it, it sucks. You don't deserve it. It's horrible and it's dark and it's why is this happening? But I will promise you right now is that years from now, it was always supposed to be them. Colette is our daughter and big God, she's ours. It was always supposed to be her.
Like every time we look at her, almost like we're almost.
You're correct. Brian's correct. We love her so much, you guys. She's our rainbow. She's our angel. And it makes you realize. So when you look at something that you love so much, and you know this through anything that you go through, and you look at something and you love them more than anything you could ever possibly imagine, all the pain that led you to that moment actually makes sense. And you can make sense of it, which is wild. But and you will get there, however that looks. And there are ways to grow your family, whatever it is. You will look back at this and go, oh, and we talk about that too, where we're like, oh, we sacrificed too many years on our career. We waited too long, or we thought we were 35 when we're 40. And, you know, and you can always look back, but you have to move forward. And we're here for you, and all your feelings are valid. But you guys are going to be the most incredible parents in so many ways. I almost feel like you guys are also parents to us in little ways where you just pick us up. So, it's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And and I can't wait to look back and go, hey, remember that. And then when you look at them in the eyes, you're going to go, oh, it was always supposed to be you.
I believe that. You know, we opened the podcast with my tattoo here that says, live as though the universe conspires in your favor. And it applies here, you know, an hour or whatever it is later, the universe conspires in your favor. Like all this is happening for us for some reason. It's part of the plan. And we just have to execute on it, you know?
True.
Came full circle. I actually love that I didn't go through any of my questions that I prepared. But we're going to have to do like a whole series of us sitting down for wine at a dining room table and talk through things. Brian's still crying.
I literally just I love everyone here. That's all.
Love you guys. Everyone listening, we love you. Where can everyone find you guys?
Podcast mostly, Earn Your Happy podcast and Chris's podcast, The Chris Harder Show.
I do something fun. Every morning I wake up and I text out a positive money mindset or like an affirmation. It's because I wake Lori up every morning to an affirmation. I say, babe, I'm happier, healthier, wealthier, more fit than I was yesterday. I make her say it back. I mean, every morning, I've never ever missed a morning. And if I'm traveling, I text it to her when I wake up.
And I copy paste it and send it back.
Yeah. And then I call her over for copying and pasting. That's how consistent it is.
I'm going to say something real quick. On the way over here, we were preparing questions and Brian was like, yeah, but we don't have to talk about money. We are so uncomfortable talking about money. But you guys, money is freedom. Money is a way that you can give back. And even this morning, we were trying to figure out how to, ship baby Brian clothing over to Turkey for a charity. And that takes money to do it. And so people are so uncomfortable talking about money, and we will do another series and talk to you because I love how comfortable you make people with talking about it and asking about it. Because that is something that Brian and I are so, resistant to. We've never been able to talk about it. And so, and I hope even today opened everyone's eyes. But definitely tune into Chris's podcast. I'll put everything in the show notes. It's important. Your success is important for your financial freedom and your family's freedom and your ability to help other people, your family. I love how you guys help everyone around you. You're the most generous people. You work hard so you can give back.
Yep.
And that is a gift for everybody, and it's beautiful. So, okay. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey all, I'm so excited to share with you, Earn Your Happy is now part of Growth Day Podcast Network. A bunch of us are coming together to bring more growth to the world and support shows and brands that we truly believe in. And one of my friends is also on the network, and I'd love for you to go subscribe to his show. You guys, Trent Shelton has the most incredible podcast. It's called Straight Up with Trent Shelton, and it's going to remind you that you are built for this. I have heard Trent speak in person multiple times. I've listened to his podcast a ton. He's coming on the show, and I literally cannot wait because this man just spits straight fire. It is like truth that goes to your core and makes you take action right away. If you want one of those podcasts that when you're just out on a walk, you can't help but want to start running and run through a wall in your life, this is the show to go listen to. So you guys, make sure that you go subscribe to the show, Straight Up with Trent Shelton. You're going to love it. Hey, do you know what the big secret is this year? And it shouldn't be a secret because this should be your biggest focus. It is building your community. I am always working on building and nurturing my community, and everyone is talking about the power of community. Without an online community, you just cannot grow organically or create a real movement, which is what I know that we're all after. And you can build trust or monetize your audience. When you get community right, not only does your audience grow faster, but so do your sales. But where's everybody going to be managing their communities these days? And a lot of online entrepreneurs and thought leaders are turning to Circle.so. Circle is an all-in-one community platform. It lets you host content and create discussions, live streams, group chats, and memberships all under your own brand. And what's so cool about Circle.so is that you don't even need a website or Facebook group. Instead, Circle lets you build your own community site where you can host content and manage your members. You can even create locked and unlocked content spaces, groups, and classes. How freaking cool is that? You can put your content behind a paywall too, and you can charge different amounts of money for different spaces on your community site. Circle.so is famously easy to use, and it has a free 14-day trial for you, so you can go check it out, see if you like it, see if you love all the options. Just go to Circle.so. Go check it out right now, you guys. Imagine being able to manage your community, start group chats and live classes, and accept payments all in one place. Kind of mind-blowing since this is usually spread all over the place. You have to log into so many different things. If this is the year to capture, organize, and monetize your community, head over to Circle.so. You can get a free trial and start building your online community right now. Just go to Circle.so. You guys, you get the 14-day free trial. So just go and see if it's for you. It's going to streamline everything and make your life so much easier. It's so freaking cool.